Florida is the state where tourists vanish in broad daylight, where entire towns get swallowed by the swamp, and where the highways have body counts. Most people drive through it on their way to Disney World or the beach, never knowing that they just passed a place where someone disappeared last Tuesday. The locals know. The locals never stop in certain spots. They keep the windows up, they keep the doors locked, and they keep driving. In a minute, I am going to take you to 13 places in Florida where stopping your car is the worst decision you can make. Abandoned hospitals where the children's wing was never demolished. A stretch of interstate so cursed that the construction crew quit. A tiny post office in the middle of an alligator swamp with a creature problem the government will not acknowledge. By the end, you will understand why the smartest drivers in Florida know exactly where to keep their foot on the gas. If you like cursed roads, abandoned places, and the parts of America that the tourism board does not put on the map, hit that subscribe button before we get started. This channel goes there every week. Now let us begin the drive. Number 13. The Sunshine Skyway Bridge. The Sunshine Skyway is one of the most photographed bridges in the Southeast. It stretches over 4 miles across Tampa Bay, painted in bright yellow cables that catch the sun like a postcard. It is also one of the deadliest bridges in America. In May 1980, a freighter crashed into the original bridge during a violent storm. A Greyhound bus and several cars drove straight off the missing section into the bay. 35 people died. You can still find rusted bridge pylons sticking out of the water, left there as a memorial. But that is not the only reason locals will not stop on the Skyway. Since the new bridge opened, more than 300 people have jumped from it. There are now suicide prevention phones every few hundred feet. Tow truck drivers in Tampa Bay have stories, long quiet stories about cars left running on the shoulder, doors open, nobody inside. Stopping on the Skyway means you are either out of gas, out of options, or out of hope. None of those are good reasons. Number 12. Stiltsville. In the middle of Biscayne Bay, about a mile off the coast of Miami, you will see something that does not belong. A cluster of wooden houses built on stilts, sitting in the middle of the open ocean. This is Stiltsville, and nobody lives there anymore. It started in the 1930s as a fishing camp and quickly turned into something else. Gambling parlors, liquor speakeasies during Prohibition, the Bikini Club, where the cover charge was a swimsuit and a willingness to forget what year it was. At its peak, there were 27 houses out there. Hurricane after hurricane chewed them down. Today, only 7 remain. They are owned by the National Park Service. You can boat past them, but you cannot go inside. Boaters who anchor too close at night report lights flickering in windows that have not had electricity in decades. They hear music, footsteps on rotted wood floors, people standing on porches that no longer exist. You do not stop at Stiltsville. You photograph it from a distance, and you keep moving. Number 11. The Devil's Tree. In Oak Hammock Park in Port St. Lucie, there is an oak tree that is 300 years old. It is massive, it is beautiful, and it is the site of one of the most disturbing murders in Florida history. In 1973, a man named Gerard Schaefer murdered 2 teenage girls and buried them at the base of this exact tree. He was a Martin County deputy at the time. He used his badge to lure his victims. Investigators later linked him to as many as 30 more disappearances across Florida. The locals call it the Devil's Tree. People have tried to cut it down. The chainsaws break, the chains snap. One man who tried to bulldoze it in the 90s reportedly lost his arm in a freak accident later that week. Visitors today report cold spots in the middle of summer. Photographs come out blurry only when aimed at the trunk. People say they hear the sound of a girl crying when nobody else is in the park. The county now puts a fence around the area at night. Officially, it is to protect the historic tree. Unofficially, ask anyone who lives nearby what they think. Number 10. Acopee. Drive west on Tamiami Trail through the Everglades and you'll come to a town called Acopee. Population 11. It's home to the smallest post office in the United States, a building roughly the size of a tool shed. It's also the official headquarters of skunk ape research. The skunk ape is Florida's version of Bigfoot, a 7-foot, swamp-dwelling creature that smells like rotten eggs and methane, hence the name. Hundreds of sightings have been logged in this exact stretch of Big Cypress National Preserve. Park rangers have files, and the Collier County Sheriff's Office has files. The Air Force investigated in 1974 after a pilot reported seeing one from a low-flying helicopter. But the skunk ape is not why locals warn you not to stop in Ochopi. The reason is the alligators. The actual documented 12-foot alligators that come up from the canals on the side of the road and have been known to attack people changing tires. A woman lost her dog here in 2019. A man lost his leg in 2022. If you break down an Ochopi, you do not get out of your vehicle. You stay inside and you call a tow truck. End of story. Number 9. Spook Hill. In the town of Lake Wales, there is a small road called Spook Hill. At the bottom of the road, there is a sign with instructions. Drive your car to the white line. Put it in neutral. Take your foot off the brake. Your car will roll uphill, not downhill, uphill. This has been happening since the 1950s. Engineers and physicists have studied it. The current scientific explanation is that the surrounding terrain creates an optical illusion, but anyone who has actually parked there and felt their car pulled backwards against gravity will tell you the explanation feels insufficient. Local Seminole legend says a great chief was buried in this hill after a battle with the giant alligator that terrorized the village. The chief's spirit, or the alligator spirit, depending on who is telling the story, is still pulling at anything that tries to cross the sacred ground. Tourists love Spook Hill during the day. At night, police chase people away. There have been reports of cars rolling on their own with the engine off and no one inside. There have been reports of cars stopping at the top, drivers walking back down, and never being heard from again. About 45 minutes north of Orlando, off Interstate 4, there is a town with no fast food, no chain stores, and a population of roughly 100 people. Every single resident is a certified psychic medium. Cassadaga calls itself the psychic capital of the world. It was founded in 1894 by a spiritualist from New York who said his dead spirit guide led him to this exact patch of Central Florida. The town is small. The town is quiet. The town is also surrounded by an electromagnetic field that scientists at the University of Central Florida have confirmed is genuinely unusual. Compasses spin. Cell phones lose service. Cameras malfunction. Visitors drive through Cassadaga to get readings done. But locals from the surrounding towns of DeLand and Lake Helen will tell you something else. They will tell you not to drive through Cassadaga after dark. Not because of the psychics, because of what the psychics say is there. The Devil's Chair in Lake Helen Cemetery is just outside town. Legend says if you leave an unopened beer can on it at night, it will be empty by morning. People have tried. The cans are always empty. Nobody has ever filmed how. Number 7. The Skunk Ape Highway. Loop Road in Big Cypress National Preserve is a 26-mile gravel road that branches off Tamiami Trail. It is beautiful. It is remote. It cuts through some of the oldest cypress swamp in North America. It also has the highest number of unexplained disappearances per mile of any road in Florida. Loop Road is where hikers go missing, where their cars are found 3 days later, still running, doors unlocked, wallets and keys on the dashboard, where the sheriff's department has stopped reopening missing persons cases on a 1-year cycle because the same names keep coming back. This is also where most of the credible skunk ape sightings come from, where Dave Shealy, the official skunk ape researcher, photographed a creature in 2000. The photo has been authenticated as untampered by independent analysts. If you drive Loop Road, you do it during the day. You do not stop except for emergencies. You keep your phone charged, knowing it probably will not get signal anyway, and if something walks out of the cypress and starts crossing the road in front of you, you stay in the car and you let it pass. That is the rule. Number 6. Sunland Hospital. The Sunland Hospitals were a chain of state-run institutions for the developmentally disabled operating across Florida from the 1960s to the early 1980s. 3 of them have been demolished. The one in Tallahassee was abandoned and left standing for years before finally being torn down in 2006. In its final operating years, Sunland Tallahassee was under federal investigation for abuse. Patients were dying at a rate that shocked even Florida regulators. The cause of death on the records was almost always listed as the same word, pneumonia, even for patients who had been admitted for unrelated conditions weeks earlier. After the hospital closed, the building sat empty for 2 decades. The locals called it the Hospital of Hell. Trespassers reported being touched by invisible hands in the children's wing, hearing wheelchairs roll down empty hallways, and seeing the figure of a small boy in a wheelchair parked at the end of the 3rd floor corridor, watching them. The building is gone, but people who drive past the empty lot at night say the air still feels wrong there. Cars stall, GPS systems reroute, cell phones drain to 0 in minutes. You don't stop on Phillips Road in Tallahassee after sundown. That's just common sense among the locals. If you're still watching, you're the kind of person this channel was built for. Hit subscribe so the next one finds you. We've got 6 more locations to go and the worst of them is still ahead. Let's keep driving. Number 5. The Everglades Jetport. In the middle of the Big Cypress Swamp, there is a 6-mile-long abandoned runway. It was supposed to be the largest airport in the world, bigger than JFK, Heathrow, and LAX combined. Construction started in 1968. It was called the Everglades Jetport. Only 1 runway was ever finished. The environmental impact would have destroyed the entire Everglades ecosystem, and the project was killed in 1970. But the runway remains out in the middle of nowhere, 60 miles from the nearest gas station. Cracked asphalt stretching to the horizon. Pilots use it for emergency landings. Drug smugglers used it heavily in the 1980s. Several bodies have been found at the edges of the runway over the decades, dumped by people who knew the location was remote enough that nobody would find the evidence for years. The runway is still technically accessible. You can drive a dirt road from Tamiami Trail right up to it. People do. Most of them turn around. The ones who do not say the runway feels wrong. The cracked tarmac stretches into the distance with no clear horizon line. The air is still. There are no birds. The alligators in the surrounding canals are unusually large and unusually unafraid of humans. Stopping at the Everglades Jetport puts you 60 miles from help in a swamp that has eaten airplanes and bodies for 50 years. The math is not in your favor. Number 4. Indian Key. Indian Key is a small island in the Florida Keys, accessible only by boat. It is now a state park. Tourists kayak out there to see the ruins of an old town and the remnants of a tropical garden. In 1840, Indian Key was the 2nd largest town in Dade County. It had a hotel, a store, a doctor's office, and a population of about 70 people. Then in August of that year, it was attacked by a group of Seminoles during the Second Seminole War. The town was burned to the ground in a single night. The doctor's wife and children were murdered in their beds. The bodies of the residents were never properly recovered. The island was abandoned and never resettled. Today, the ruins are overgrown with tropical vegetation. The remains of the foundations are still visible. The cisterns where the murdered families were dumped are still there, filled with rainwater 200 years later. Park rangers who patrol Indian Key after hours say it is the most uncomfortable assignment in the state park system. They report the sound of children playing in a town that has not existed in nearly 2 centuries. The smell of wood smoke from fires that are not burning. The feeling of being watched from windows of buildings that no longer have windows or walls. If your boat breaks down near Indian Key after dark, you call for help and you stay in the boat. You don't go ashore. Number 3. The Interstate 4 Dead Zone. Interstate 4 runs across the middle of Florida, connecting Tampa to Daytona Beach. It is one of the most dangerous highways in America, with a fatality rate roughly 3 times the national average. There is a specific stretch just over a quarter-mile long near the St. Johns River in Seminole County, where the accident rate spikes to a level engineers cannot explain. Locals call it the dead zone. In 1905, 4 Catholic settlers from Germany died of yellow fever near this exact location. They were buried in a small family cemetery. In 1961, the cemetery was paved over for the construction of Interstate 4. Since then, this quarter-mile stretch has seen single car accidents at impossible angles, drivers losing consciousness with no medical cause, phantom hitchhikers reported by truckers only to vanish from the cab while the truck is still moving at 70 miles per hour. 3 of the most destructive hurricanes in Florida history have passed directly over this exact stretch of highway. Construction crews working on the interstate report tools disappearing, equipment malfunctioning, and workers refusing to do night shifts in that section. If your car breaks down between mile markers 108 and 109 on Interstate 4, local towing companies have a name for the call. They call it the dead zone call. They send 2 trucks, never one. Number 2, Yeehaw Junction. Yeehaw Junction is barely a town. It's a truck stop at the intersection of Florida's Turnpike and State Road 60 in the middle of cattle country. Population is around 350. It also has the Desert Inn. The Desert Inn is a roadside motel and saloon that has been operating since the 1880s. Originally, it was a brothel and gambling house for cattle drivers. The walls are made of cypress pine. The original tin ceiling is still in place. So is, according to the staff and decades of guests, the original spirit clientele. Truckers who stop at Yeehaw Junction overnight tell stories, knocks on the door from women who are not there, cold hands grabbing their ankles in bed, the sound of poker chips on a table when the saloon is locked and empty. The Desert Inn closed officially in 2018 after the highway widening project. The building is still standing. It is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Nobody has bought it. Truckers still pull off at Yeehaw Junction for the gas station. They do not sleep there. There are towns 30 miles in either direction that are safer to park overnight, and every long-haul driver who works that route knows it. Number 1, Coral Castle. In Homestead, Florida, just south of Miami, there is a structure that scientists, engineers, and architects have never been able to explain. It is called Coral Castle. It was built single-handedly by one man between 1923 and 1951. His name was Edward Leeds Kalnin. He was a 5-foot-tall Latvian immigrant. He weighed roughly 100 pounds. He built Coral Castle out of more than 1,100 tons of carved limestone, including individual blocks that weigh up to 30 tons each. He did it alone, at night, with no electricity, no heavy machinery, no helpers, and no witnesses. When asked how he moved the stones, Leeds Kalnin said only one thing. He said he knew the secrets of the pyramids. He never elaborated. He took the answer to his grave in 1951. The castle is open as a tourist attraction during the day, but locals in Homestead will tell you not to drive past it at night with the windows down. They say the stones hum at frequencies you can feel in your teeth. They say compasses spin when you get within 50 feet of the property line. They say the gate, a 9-ton coral block balanced so perfectly that a child can push it with one finger, sometimes opens on its own. Edward Leeds Kalnin knew something. Whatever it was, it is still active in those stones. Stopping at Coral Castle after midnight, when the tourists are gone and the gate is closed, is the kind of decision the locals make exactly once. The pattern. Drive across Florida from the Skyway in the west to Indian Key in the south, and you start to notice a pattern. The state was built fast, built on swamp, built on burial grounds, built on top of towns that were destroyed, paved over, and forgotten. The land remembers, even when the maps do not. The 13 places we just covered are not the only ones. Every long-haul trucker in Florida has a personal list. Every county sheriff has one too. There are stretches of road that the locals know not to drive. Towns that exist on no GPS, but show up on every old map. If you are ever driving through Florida and you see a place that feels wrong, trust that feeling. Roll up the windows, keep your foot on the gas, wait until you are at least 20 miles past it before you stop. The locals do that. They learn the hard way. If this took you somewhere you did not expect, hit subscribe. Next week we are going deeper. 13 more places in a different state that the locals warn you to drive past. You do not want to miss it. Stay safe out there.